Welcome, good morning to Talking Point once again on this Wednesday morning. My name is Sean Michael Small. My co-host, Mr. Keita Shah, he's unable to join us unfortunately again today, but thankfully we have one of the originals of the originals as well to help me with the conversation. Of course, our usual Wednesday contributor, attorney at law, former Minister of Finance, legal scholar extraordinaire, former political insider, you could say, Mrs. Karen Shishera. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning to you, Sean, and good morning to Keaton, wherever he is. I do miss him, and of course, again, always to your viewership. Good morning, and hope, as usual, we have a very interesting and very, informative discussion. I think that is what WESN strives to do, and I think they do a good job on that.
Well, interesting discussions are to be had because there's one topic that I think it is somewhat, I wouldn't say near and dear to my heart, but it is important to me because I feel as though not enough attention and weight has been given to this topic. And I also feel as though, to some extent, the opposition as well as other stakeholders have dropped the ball. Maybe even the media, and us included here at Talking Point, have dropped the ball with regards to the issue of the withdrawal, whether it is legal or illegal, of the merit list. And then finally, very recently, the Prime Minister admitted that he was at the meeting, or he met with Liz Superstad, but he still denies that it was interfering in the work of the Police Service Commission. He is just, I believe he said, passing on information. So he gives us, finally, this admittance of what took place, but it was something that many people assumed, if not him, it was someone close enough to him that for all intents and purposes, their lack of comment on the matter. And I would challenge that there was a bit of lying by omission. We kind of knew it took place. We suspected it took place, and he admits it now. For what reason or purpose, I don't know. But now I have to ask you, Karen, what now do you make of this ongoing saga? Because we knew it was going to be in drips and drabs. We would get information, but the resolution to it, I will still challenge. We cannot be sure that something like this would be prevented from happening, not just in the distant future, but even in the immediate future.
I think, Sean, that one of the challenges in keeping the story alive was that it involved three critical parties. One in particular, the President of our Republic, the former head of the Police Service Commission, and the Prime Minister. And I'm not sure that they were ad idem or they were in agreement with how the story was to be told or how we were to be told. And as a consequence of which, there was a lot, as you know, of, issuing statements, silence, radio silence, conflicting messages that were not clear, messages that were ambiguous. But clearly the intention was, at the end of the day, for one to come to the conclusion that even if the Prime Minister was the person which everyone had suspected it was, that his part in it was of no consequence to what the President eventually and Bliss Superstar did, and that cannot be true. And the reason for that is that, and I think Mr. Lala has made a good point, and it's very simple. When you look at what the President said, she said that the list was delivered to the President's house. She said that it was, she met with Bliss Superstar, the head of the Police Service Commission, and that the list was immediately withdrawn. That is what she said. So, in other words, between the submission of the list, which was the duty of the Police Service Commission, and she as chairman, to submit the list to the president under section 123.3. Once that submission had occurred, there was nothing more for her to do, and there was nothing more for the president to do but to comply with a statutory duty, which was very limited, which was to prepare the notification to Parliament. And that did not happen. So one has to conclude, when they use those words, was withdrawn, someone had to have intervened in order for Blissy Prasad, who, and the other question was, she came there in her capacity as representing the Police Service Commission, not in her own singular capacity. And as far as I have read, and I don't think it has been denied, I do not think she got the agreement of the other members of the Police Service Commission to withdraw the list, to take back the list. So did she have the authority to do that? But very importantly, once it had been submitted, any withdrawal of that list, and the fact that the Prime Minister is now admitting that he did speak with Blissy Prasad, and he had to have done it after the list had been submitted, and then having spoken to her, the list was withdrawn. One could only conclude just on logic alone that whatever he said to her and whatever document he handed to her was the source of her taking back that list. And I think all of that speaks to constitutionally improper behavior, and it goes against the whole separation of power. What's the point of having a Police Service Commission charged with the responsibility of preparing an order of merit list, then having it being discussed or being debated in Parliament? And my view, let me say this, my view, when I try to figure out why did the Prime Minister wait on that day? I mean, I think he had that report for quite some time. Certainly they started the gathering information since November, end of 2019, according to the report, and I think they've admitted that. So he's had access to that information for quite a long time. Why wait on the same exact day that Blissy Prasad, in her capacity, goes to hand it over to the president, fait accompli? Why did he have to wait till that day? So my view is, and I may be very wrong, but if I have that view, it's because of the, nature abhors a vacuum, and they have created many vacuums, so allows us to speculate reasonably. I believe that the Police Service Commission was derelict in their duty because much of what Stanley John's report indicated was exactly what was being reported in the newspapers for the last 2 years. And for reasons best known to themselves, they never looked at that. How could you not look at that when, in fact, it was almost verified exactly what he had been saying, and even more than what Stanley John's report stated. So I think the Prime Minister realized that in my view, that the Police Service Commission had no intention of going down that route of the FUL, because I believe if they had done that and started inquiry, they would have had to either take Jari off the list completely, and they did not want to do that. So I believe that the Prime Minister realized that that was not going to happen. And one thing he did not want is he did not want that report to see the light of day of Parliament. Why am I saying that? Because in the newspapers, it was reported from the Stanley John report that was leaked to the media and to the National Security Council, that among the alleged wrongdoings, was that Mr. Griffith broke up contracts so that he could come within his $1 million ceiling in awarding contracts, but they awarded to the same people to provide the same thing. But more importantly, that one person was given 10 guns, 10 licenses for guns in 1 year, but also that a contract for $7.2 million was awarded to a person who was a relative of a senior member of cabinet for the provision of, of cars, a person who was never on the pre-qualification list. And according to the reports, the requirements to be considered for the award, that company did not meet it. and it was a senior cabinet minister's family member. That was also reported. So I believe that the Prime Minister not only did not want Gary to go forward, but more so, he did not want that report to go to Parliament, because it would have affected very badly on the government. So his way of dealing with it was to wait on the day when the Police Service Commission chairperson came according to the Constitution to submit the list, and having submitted the list, intervened. And that something is terribly wrong with that, because it is that intervention, based on what we are reading, that caused her to take back the list, and to do so without getting the concurrence of the other members of the Police Service Commission.
Karen, there is a new twist to the story, because despite newspaper reports with regards to what the Prime Minister said earlier on, he admitted he was the high-ranking official that was reported to have met with Blissy Prasad, right, at President's house, right? So that meeting, the meeting itself, he has apparently admitted to it. Now, what he is saying, first of all, he was denying that he interfered. That was one of the arguments that was provided to the media, right? He asked since when was providing information interference. But then, that was Monday, or that was what was reported Monday. But then, it's now reported that the Prime Minister is saying that the meeting was not about the Commissioner of Police, despite the fact that, as far as I'm aware, it was reported that first of all, what else do you meet with regards to an official capacity, the chairman of the Police Service Commission? The commission's only role, as far as I'm aware, is to select, and if necessary, in theory, discipline and fire. So hire and fire the commissioner and deputy commissioners. They don't even have the authority to hire and fire the assistant commissioners or anybody else underneath that. So what else do you meet Blissy Prasad for? That's number one. But two, I believe it was reported that he met with her with regards to information on one Gary Griffith, who was then the acting Commissioner of Police, or soon to be acting, depending on, I can't remember the timeline at this point, the former Commissioner of Police. The person who the government technically did change the laws to try to get as acting, and then all of a sudden dropped him like a bad habit. So I just want to know exactly what is the Prime Minister trying to say. Because let's go away from someone who wants to be an antagonist or opposition to the Prime Minister. Just as a neutral observer, what exactly are the claims here? Because you did not interfere, but you provided information on the leading candidate in the middle of not in the middle, when the list was supposed to be presented to the President to then take it to Parliament. And you're also trying to say that it had nothing to do with the police service. It had nothing to do, with the Commissioner of Police. So I'm very confused exactly what is his goal, because I think you mentioned, as you said before, the communication. But in this case, it's not three people having stories that are not exactly linking up. It is one person giving 2 to 3 angles that is not exactly linking up.
I think what he does, what the Prime Minister should have been a lawyer, because he's very careful in the choice of his words. So he's going to say, when did I say that it was on the Commissioner of Police? I said the report was on the FUL. And as you may recall, the Stanley John reference point, or his terms of reference, was not to look into Gary Griffith, but was to go look into the FUL. But by looking into the FUL, of which the Gary Griffith, as Commissioner of Police under the Firearms Act, was the only person authorized to grant firearms, and he, is effectively was an inquiry into Gary Griffith. But he's being very, he's taking us. I think he's like the emperor with no clothes. Nobody believes you. Nobody believes all the stories you're telling. It's not and you know why? It's not because, there are people who will they're going no matter what.
Yes.
But the reason, because you're not making, it's not making sense. How is it that the president herself admitted that the list was already submitted to her? Once that was done, she herself, when they wanted her, I don't like to say she, the president, she was asked by the same Blissy Prasad to appoint as acting commissioner and deputy acting commissioner, both Gary Griffith and I can't remember who the other person was, because there was going to be a time in August when they would not have a commissioner of police until the whole process was done. The president wrote in no uncertain terms, said that she could not do that because legal notice 183.4 only said that the commission could pass information on to her, but it gave her no instructions as to what she was supposed to do with that list. And that being a creature of statute, she has to operate within the four walls of that statute. So she's very clear as to the limitations of her power. So once Blissy Prasad submitted the list and had not gotten the concurrence of her other members, apparently, to take it back. To withdraw something means you gave it. And to withdraw it means you gave it and it was taken back. And from the logic that we're seeing is that after that had happened, it appears the prime minister spoke to the police, not to have a chat over tea with Blissy Prasad, but Blissy Prasad had come for the specific purpose of handing over the merit list. And whatever he handed her and whatever he told her caused her to go back to the Police Service Commission with it, set up a Stanley John inquiry into the matter, and bring the matter to a halt. That should not have happened. The president should not have allowed that. The president she's a creature of statute. She lets us know that all the time. Once that list was submitted to her, she said, let the report go to Parliament.
Exactly.
And let it be debated in Parliament. But that is not what the Prime Minister wanted. He did not want that debate in Parliament.
If we never get an answer to that question, or at least a satisfactory half answer,
Yes.
We don't need all the details, but if that is never satisfied, I don't know if anybody who is looking at the situation with any degree of scrutiny would be willing to totally believe the claims that are being made. Because you're right, the Prime Minister is very careful with his language, and in some ways, the care he has taken to select his specific words might, you could argue, be a little bit more careful than how the president spoke the one time on the matter. Because he said he has made the claim, I'm searching for it here. Basically, he has made the claim that who said I was in a meeting with the president and Blissy Prasad. I mean, to me, it is very much a smart man kind of move, because you went to president's house, and Blissy Prasad, as we believe, only went to president's house at that time for one very important reason. So it will be very interesting to note that. So you mean to tell me you intercepted Blissy Prasad? Is that what happened? But again, as you pointed out, no one has denied the use of the word withdrawn. But he has said, he has challenged, because he previously made a public statement that he denied having anything to do with the relationship between the president and the Police Service Commission. The problem is, first of all, it's semantics if he was only meeting with Blissy Prasad and he intercepted her. But as you pointed out, the list was withdrawn, which means that when he spoke or whenever he passed on this information, the list was already in the hands of the president. You could argue that legally, if he successfully intercepted Blissy Prasad, that legally that might have actually stood some kind of ground. It didn't reach into the president's hand yet. I mean, that is very, very, you could, schoolyard kind of logic there. But if it was claimed that she gave the list back, the president gave the list back, well,
but the president said so.
How could the prime minister say that he had nothing to do with their relationship?
You see, that's the problem. When a story gets unwound, but every day, and there are different actors involved, in the storytelling and you've already committed yourself to a certain line, then, of course, when people go back and say, but wait, you said in your statement, because I wrote an article on it, so that's why I feel, on the role of the president. And the president did issue a statement, I think, a few weeks later, because the public kept saying they want to hear from us and not saying anything. So she had a statement issued, and she did say that on, I can't remember, August the 13th, August, I can't remember the date, really, that the merit list was delivered to the office of the president, and it was submitted to the office of the president, and that the list was immediately withdrawn that day. So the president herself is being careful in her language. And I suspect the reason why the president is keeping a lower profile, because if you ask her directly, was the list submitted to you? I think she'd have to say, yes, it was. So if you are a creature of statute, what authority did you have to even suggest to the Police Service Commission, whose duty it was to prepare the merit list, not yours? Your duty was to send that list to Parliament for them to debate it. That was your duty, not to get yourself involved in it. And if there's something to be said about that report, then let it come out in Parliament. Yes. You don't have any authority, and I think the president was put in a difficult position, because I feel if she has to answer some of these questions, did you get the list? Yes, I did. Was it submitted to you under 123? Yes, it was. And what authority did you have under a legal notice, which she did not, or under the Constitution, which she did not, to hand back? Because the withdrawal is to take back. And what authority, and more importantly, what was the purpose of withdrawing it?
Yes.
What was the purpose? The purpose of withdrawing the list was to go back and obviously look at your merit list. And while you did not name Gary Griffith's name, you said the FUL and Chandler. Who else is head of the It's Gary Griffith. So in effect, you were told to take it back with the intention. What other intention could it there be but to get Gary off the list, and for that report not to see the light of day in Parliament?
Well, we're going to have to end this discussion on this part of the topic, or this side of the coin right here. I will just say this. I suspect that the cover-up or the lack of transparency is potentially making this even worse than it needed to be. However, the question of why couldn't it be debated in Parliament again is always going to be the key question. I don't know if we'll ever get an answer to that one. But this just goes to show you, if it were more transparent, maybe things might have been a little bit easier, but, we don't know. So there is another side to this coin, however, and that is with regards to the person in question and the validity of his candidacy, not just as Commissioner of Police, but now he's hinting at another role that he has been eyeing. And we'll get into that discussion when we come back after the break. Stay tuned. This is Talking Point. Sean Michael Small, Karen Seshero. We'll be right back.
Change your fate. Start to win at life with $20,000 every month. Win $20,000 every month for 20 years with NLCB's newest game, Win for Life. 6 numbers from 28 plus the cash ball could make you win for life. You deserve a win. Play Win for Life today. Visit NLCBGames.com for details. Players must be 18 years and over. Please play responsibly.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point, and we were just talking about the latest developments in the Meritless saga. And it's an important saga because we have essentially not had a commissioner of police since, I believe, somewhere around August. So for all intents and purposes, we're looking at 7 months or so, give or take, without a commissioner of police. Technically, thankfully, we were on the tail end of a public health emergency. But now we do have to wonder, how is the police actually functioning with only 1 out of, I believe, 4 posts of the senior leadership being filled? And now it comes to the fact that the individual in question that we believe sparked all of this controversy, what he may or may not have done, because nothing has been necessarily proven in the court of law, he has once again come up into the public. He has poked his head out of the waters and decided to strike back, as the Prime Minister admitted, yes, he had the meeting. He had some very interesting things to say, some strong words to say yesterday, as well as for a couple of days at the beginning of this week. So let's hear some of what he had to say before we continue the discussion.
There have been many polls being conducted. You could throw a poll right now. 60% have told me I should try to become Prime Minister. 30% told me to reapply as Commissioner, and 10% told me go to hell. So I will continue to listen to what the country has, what the country wants, what the country demands. As it is at this time, I am seeing a massive demand by the country wherever I go, from persons even wearing the ketchup and the mustard colors. There's been a massive demand for a new change. The main problem I had with the Prime Minister is he was trying to directly influence me in things that he was out of place with. When a Prime Minister will pump $35 million into the police account to try to tell me use that to hire foreign attorneys to directly try to arrest political opponents, that is not how I'm cut. If he thought that by bringing Gary Griffith as commissioner, I would be using that, some degree of malice to go after political opponents. I don't do that. When you have an individual with 89% national support and appeal, 2 times more than a Prime Minister, when you're getting whispers in your ears by a certain caucus in the PNM, Gary Griffith is becoming too popular, too successful, he's doing his job too well, he's going to be a threat to us politically. What you now need to do is to cut me from the ankle. So this was not just stopping me. If Keith Rowley wanted, he could have gone to Parliament and not have me reappointed. This was much more than that. They didn't just want me to leave. They wanted to destroy my character because of the fear that Gary Griffith becoming political can become a concern to the PNM. So, there's a saying, be careful for what you ask for, you might get it. I have always been willing to serve my country. So if Keith Rowley has been so concerned about me going up to get back the seat of Commissioner of Police, my interest now is to go after Keith Rowley's seat. So what he was concerned with, he's going to get it now. Keith Rowley is speaking about how I interact with the public. Gentlemen, I could go anywhere in this country, inclusive of PNM Heartland, in his constituency even, and get more national support than him. The man does not understand his job, but I will show him how to do a job as a Prime Minister. So he went and tried to influence, intimidate, threaten, harass, or order. That is misbehavior in office.
So that is the former commissioner's, some of his recent arguments. He's not always combative from what I have been told. However, let me just say this up front, and I'll probably have to say this multiple times because not everybody is going to necessarily hear or even heed what I have to say. Just because we take issue with how the withdrawal of the merit list and the communication of those matters were handled, we take issue with how the Police Service Commission was disbanded because they all resigned. We take issue with the Prime Minister's communication. We take issue with the lack of reasoning over this seeming breach of constitutional law. That does not necessarily mean that we automatically support Gary Griffith with regards to being the Commissioner of Police, or even what he's alluding to, being the Prime Minister. Now, that doesn't mean that we automatically, with that said, do not support him or want to work against him. I'm just saying these are two separate issues. One is the legal process, the other one is the suitability of his candidacy for two very separate roles, you could argue. And now that is the side of the coin that I want to start off with. And I'll start off with this also. He made the claim, and this is the first time I heard of it, when he said it here, that the Prime Minister wanted him, he gave him money to hire foreign lawyers to go after political opponents. My only thing with that is, we don't know if there wasn't any legitimate concerns to be investigated there. Now, you could investigate and find nothing. But it's just one of the things where Mr. Griffith is making a claim, and it's all well and good, but the claim is very incomplete and lacks any details. So we have to be careful with what it is we take away, just like we have to be careful with what the Prime Minister says and how easily we believe him. So I do have to wonder, with his candidacy, I do think he's popular. I do think he's popular and people will believe him. But Karen, what do you make of his take on the Prime Minister and him wanting to now, if he can't be commissioner, he'll come after his position as Prime Minister?
Well, I think from the very get-go, remember, Gary was a minister, was a cabinet minister. I think he was Minister of National Security. So he has been in the political field of being part of the politics of the country before. And I think people felt that he was certainly at the beginning, felt that if you had called a snap elections at that point in time, that he would have definitely won the election. But you see, the thing about politics, a day in politics is a lifetime. It's a very dynamic field. And I think one of the, you say they're two separate issues, but you see what is going in Gary's favor is that people are losing that trust and confidence in the Prime Minister. The last one, with the Parias situation, he could find time to call Prime Minister meetings every whatever at Prime Minister's house to update us on the COVID, but you could not find time to go and visit the families at the Paria and actually come on television and express your empathy and sympathy for the family, but you could find time to talk about COVID. I found that was very disappointing. Secondly, too, despite the many requests for the letter, the legal opinion, which allows them to disband the process of sending the names forward, we have yet to see it. So there are many things, AV drilling, where the senior council really almost implored that they go to the court because of her belief that there was a lot to be concerned about, especially when the AV drilling was a personal owner, was a personal friend and a contributor to the PNM's coffers. So what I'm saying in summary on that is that it's not just it's a question of confidence and trust in the leadership, which people like Mia Mottley definitely have, and which our Prime Minister is losing on a daily basis. Now, when you come to Gary Griffith, I told you before we came on the show that coincidentally that I wasn't supposed to stay on, but I did stay on for a little while on a show out of New Jersey, and Gary Griffith was the guest. And I have to say that Gary, for the time I was on, and I was on for quite a while, and I said some I would consider very harsh things. He was the pitch of composure. He was very controlled. He showed no anger. And I had to say that I admired the way in which he handled himself. It was very, very, I was very impressed with that. And he also indicated that he corrected me. He says he needs 2,499 votes, not 2,500. So he's counting now the votes. So he's clearly going in the political arena. And you're right, even if he's exaggerating his popularity, he certainly has popularity. And one of the things he does have is, whether you like it or not, he is charismatic. Mm-hmm. He is a person who you can't shut him down, as many people, as soon as the Prime Minister goes after them, they get very quiet and they run in the corner and they don't say anything. He's definitely not made of that. And I think he is garnered a lot of support for his macho ways and for his charisma, undoubtedly his charisma. And he's younger than the Prime Minister and he's had political experience. So we can't discount him at this point in time. But as I told you, and I will stop here, as I told you, there were many things that are very troubling about Gary Griffith in terms of him becoming our Prime Minister. I mentioned some of them to him, and he took it in good stead.
Because, I mean, first of all, we should consider maybe the blustering persona is not necessarily him having a temper that just goes off the rails all the time. Maybe that is a well-crafted persona to speak, to give off a certain energy that he thinks works in the local political landscape. Because ironically, that is very similar to the type of personas from other politicians that I, quite frankly, would like us to move away from, whether it's the Prime Minister, whether it's members of the opposition. There are some who are worse perpetrators of it than others. And I will not say the names of the worst, but we have spoken about him recently on this show within the last couple of weeks. Now, maybe when he was on a different show with a different audience from a different market, a different country altogether, maybe that is also part of his publicity to now, okay, I need to have a different persona here, and I'm not really that angry guy all the time. I could be reasonable, and he's trying to portray that. I mean, that's just speculation. I do wonder if he was that way all the time, how much better he might be, because you pointed out to Mia Mottley, and the one thing I would say with Mia Mottley is she has that goodwill stored in the bank, that you believe what she says. This is who she is. And if there's any misstep, it's small enough that you could easily overlook it because of how the energy that she just portrays. And I think this is where the Prime Minister himself has done himself a disservice, because when he tries to emulate that style of communication, it doesn't work as well, because all people could see is some of the more wajang things he has said publicly over the years. Basically. But all that said, I personally, as much as I have been very critical of the Prime Minister for certain things he has done, Notice I have never said call a snap election now, we need to replace him. No. Because I have a problem. I have a problem in that most of the people that say call a snap election, it's not as though I'm necessarily going to want to vote them in, or even some of the people underneath Dr. Keith Rowley who are waiting for him to retire so that they could fight over leadership of the PNM. I'm not necessarily looking forward to them either being potentially a candidate to Prime Minister. So I'm okay with Dr. Keith Rowley in the balance of things, right? Maybe if we had a Mia Mottley, then of course, whoever a Mia Mottley type person, I might prefer that person to be Prime Minister. We just might have somebody coming up waiting in the wings, but I won't talk about that. However, we have to face with the now. Outside of Dr. Keith Rowley, Prime Minister, he has said on the record that this might be his last term. I've also heard in one interview where he said no, he would come back. So I'm not entirely sure what his stance is. I haven't heard any follow-up since. Say he is removed from the landscape. I think he could defeat Gary Griffith. I do think so. I think he has enough support from his party, and his party has enough overall support. I think however Gary comes in, I don't know if he could beat Dr. Keith Rowley. However, if you remove the incumbent, either the UNC or the PNM, who is more popular than Gary Griffith right now?
The thing I know from my little experience in politics is people vote party. And a lot of, there's a famous statement that Dr. Eric Williams says that he could put a tie on a crapo and he'll vote for him. But really it is loyalty to party. Mm-hmm. And whoever is the leader, whether you like the leader or have concerns about the leader, you remain loyal to the party. I think I like him very much, but I think Robert Lahan found that out, that the party would trump anytime. Would trump, except unfortunately, I use the word Trump, except in Trump world, it seems to be, Trump seems to have a cult of personality that he is the leader there. But generally in our politics, people find that when they try to start independent parties, they can get votes, they can win seats, which allow them to have some level of negotiating ability. But really and truly, we have, it's the party. It is going to be the party at the end of the day. People vote Balize, people vote Rising Sun. So to answer your question though, with Gary Griffith, it's early days. I wanted to list some of the reasons why I don't think that he is the right right person to be the Prime Minister. What I think gives a lot of people a sense of hopelessness, which is like what I would call the 20% who are neither red or blue, maybe they are orange, or they have no loyalty to one side or the other. I think what gives people a sense of hopelessness is that they find there's corruption on both sides. And I know you keep saying is how he speaks, but AV Drilling is a good example. The Shanghai with the 5,000 houses is a good example. Yes. You know, there are a lot of examples where the Prime Minister was wanting in his, and even with this issue now that we're dealing with the appointment of the Commissioner of Police, all of that clouded in mystery and lack of transparency and so on. Coming to Gary is going to have to do a lot of work, and if there are enough people who have the power, and I'm talking about the financial power to go against him, or go for him, it will help. But things that I brought his attention, and I found that that's my view, that I find he's not willing to take responsibility. When you tell him something, he doesn't say, well, yes, that may be part of it. He's not admitting it. Yes. I pointed out to him that you have put yourself out as a crime fighter. And we know that when you were the Commissioner of Police for the entire 2019, appointed in 2018, we had the second highest murder rate in the recorded history of murders in Trinidad. I think he corrected me, was 548. The highest was in 2008 when I was in government. But he touts himself as being the crime buster, and he had the second highest murder rate. Secondly, when you pointed out that the reduction in 2020 and 2021, it's not only the SOE, which he paid a lot of attention to, but the regulation, the public health regulations, which operated to a large extent as the SOE in terms of crowds gathering, people being out late at night. And that is what SOEs are often used for, to deal with crime. So I don't think he was being fair with that. What he did say, in all fairness to him, is now we don't have an SOE, but we still have the public health regulations, and the numbers are going back up. And the other thing that concerned me with him was that the issue with Hackshaw. When Hackshaw, who acted for him on a number of occasions, now retired, had a number of deposits just below the 50,000, where you have to declare source of funds, I believe, that he was reported by the FU for suspicious transactions. And Gary Griffith, as the Commissioner of Police, said, no, we investigated it and there's nothing there. Police Complaints Authority, David West, said, yes, there's something there, and I've sent it to the DPP. In June, Gary Griffith gives an interview and says, I passed on my file to the DPP. In July, the DPP comes on and says, no, he did not pass it on. Then, most importantly, what is happening right now, yes, because it's credibility. Most important is this SORT, S-O-R-T,
yes,
which he created in November 2019. And it was made up of his people. He took people from the defense and made them special reserve
military.
Police. Yeah. And in November, the acting commissioner, Jacobs, said, no, we're keeping SORT. Then he turned around about 2 weeks ago and said, no, we're not keeping it. And you know why? Because the Americans said that they are not happy with what they're seeing happening with SORT. One, with the 2 men who fell off a chair and died. We have a system, you're innocent till proven guilty. As why just not kill people one time. The extrajudicial killings, that was unmentioned. Blunt force trauma, they were unhappy with that. And they were unhappy with the fact that the DSS person who was seen stuffing money into his thing was an SRP from the Defense Force. But more importantly, they were very unhappy about the goings on in SORT.
Yes.
And that is the brainchild of Gary Griffith. And if you want to wonder what we don't know, you understand what we don't know, for the Americans to be able to put enough pressure on our government that they had to disband this SORT and put in another body where you have to have testing for drugs, testing for what they do when to test is whether they're lying or not.
Yes, lie detector test.
So, right, and the lie detector. So when you take all of those matters into account, I am sorry. And more importantly now, one of the calling people cockroaches. And I told him this yesterday. I said, Gary Griffith, you are Minister of National Security. You sat on the National Security Council. You very well know that problem in Laventille and Mova, where you are a whole set of young black youths, which you know make up most of the prisoners in our system. Their self-esteem is worthless when you very well know the problem is outside of there. And how I told him that is, I said, if it was a matter of race, why is Tobago not overrun with criminals? If it is a matter of race, why isn't Toco overrun with criminals? If it is a matter of race, why is Point Fortune overrun with criminals? It is because of urban poverty and the vulnerability and ease of recruitment. And yet you keep pointing your finger at them, at the Zessers and the cockroaches, and up to now, you have not given me one large containment of cocaine. And you know, Gary Griffith, that the crime and the unlicensed guns in this country and the gangs are being fed by money laundering and the cocaine coming out of Venezuela. And what are you doing? Instead of dealing with that, that's why he said he can't deal with it because it's national security. My point is that I told him, I said, I will go on the stage with you if you disrupt a large containment of cocaine and leave the marijuana alone. And as far as I'm concerned, he has, in my view, no matter what he said about what he told me, we have playing fields for them, I did this. What is the point of all of that? When you are seeing the people in the drug trade with many houses, more cars than they could drive, more yachts than they could think. How are you going to compete with that kind of money with a playing field? Give me a break. You cut in the branches and you won't deal with the roots. So I told him, until you are prepared to deal with the roots, but you know what the roots are, then I cannot have confidence in your ability to be a real crime fighter and not to continue the corruption that is endemic and pandemic, endemic in Trinidad and Tobago.
I think
he took it well, I have to say.
We do have callers who are some of whom are regular callers who support Gary Griffith and believe he was a good commissioner. I will say this: you are comparing him essentially to an alternative that is not the long-term alternative. Deputy Commissioner Jacobs is the acting commissioner of police who, as far as I'm aware, he has to do the commissioner's job and his own job, and he does not have other DCPs who have their own roles functioning as well. So the situation that you're comparing Gary to is not necessarily a fair comparison to say, look how much better he was. Well, it's a worse situation just overall. It has nothing to do with the individual in the seat. I will also add to this, I think the most damning thing to me, as much as a pragmatist might be willing to overlook some of the things you've said, maybe not all, but some. But the most damning thing to me was, at the end of the day, the Stanley John report more or less says that money was passed for these firearm licenses. And the implication that he was willing to take money for firearm licenses, well then, what else is he willing to take money for? It's an implication.
Allegedly. You don't know that he did.
Right. It's not proven in court.
In his department were doing that.
It's not proven in court. I understand. But this is the commissioner.
He was not charged. And by the way, the Stanley John report was not a report that was done for the DPP. It was to vet him for whether he was the right candidate for the job. But
Karen, at the end of the day, we have to remember two things. One, he has the final say of the licenses. And two, he made a big deal about going after police corruption. He made a big deal out of it. So it's either corruption happened under his nose over a matter that he had direct oversight of, or he was involved in it. And back to your point with regards to the people in the middle and their concern about corruption, I don't have confidence if that is your track record with one of the worst open or public now pieces of corruption we've seen in quite some time, because I think it was 30,000 for a firearms license. Give me a break. Give me a break. I know that there might be bigger money matters with regards to contracts being awarded and whatnot, but this is naked, I guess you could say extortion. You want your license? I need money. There's no subtlety behind it at all.
And you know what was very disturbing on that? And you see, Denise Wren had said, and she was proven to be right, because that's what the Stanley John report said, that one person who had been convicted of serious crimes, he was issued a provisional fire, and the only one who could do that is Gary Griffith. And by the way, it was the report that was sent to him, according to what she said, and I believe that's what Stanley John would have relied on, said he should not be given the license. And then there was another person who was being accused before the court, who he issued the provisional license to, and he gave one person 10 firearms in 1 year. I mean, what else do you need to know about a person's suitability to run your country when there is fear of interest? You are seeing so many wrongdoings and people actually being charged.
Well, Karen, we have to end the conversation here. I guess basically we have a lot of questions with regards to Mr. Griffith's candidacy. His popularity might give him a path, maybe through the UNC, but we don't have time to debate it any further. We have to break for news on your one WESN. When we come back, we will open up the phone lines. You, the viewer, could weigh in on this topic or any other topics you have. I'm sure we will have some Gary Griffith supporters and detractors out there that will want to give their 2 cents. That's fine. Call in. Let us know what you think. But until then, we'll see you. News on the hour next.
7 is out. All day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Is it politics? What is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andre.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point, and of course, this is the time where we invite you, all of our viewers, to call in, have your say. The phone line should be open. You should see the numbers at the bottom of your screen, but we do have a caller already. Yes, if you want to be the first caller, you have to call before we come back. We have a caller from Petty Valley. Good morning, caller.
Yes, Sean, I know the trick to call before you come back. Good morning, Sean and Karen Nunez, Shera.
Morning.
Karen, when the interview you had with Gary and you said he take it well what you said and he conduct himself well, I'm saying it's probably the platform he's on. He knew us to behave himself and control himself, one. Two, the problem I have with Gary Griffith, They had an investigation at time with the media when I don't like to go into people's family business, but it's in the public domain. There was talking about his son on the national under 17 team, and he really could not make the team. Is because of Gary providing the bus, police bus, and the meals and everything. The son was making the team. And when they interview Gary, for a big commissioner, he get vexed and say, anybody in the country feels a challenge, me and my son in a small goal competition, one-on-one come. I think that is so petty. So my opinion on Gary Griffith, I think he's a narcissistic person. All he thinks is about himself, and it turns me off. I'm not really a fan of him. He thinks about himself. That's my opinion this morning. Thank you.
I think we are in agreement with that. And, I said what I said because I always try to be fair. I always try to be fair in what I say.
Well, we have another caller from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Mr. Small, and good morning, Miss Karen Nunes-Shitera.
Morning.
I want to throw this to you all. If I give you all information, what is my expectation? And I'm saying that in regard to the PM's role with all of this. So if I give you that information, my expectation is for you to act on it.
Exactly.
Isn't that another way of saying I want you to be influenced? Because Bliss is running with the merit list to the president house. And I give you information, and all of a sudden, she can't stall, and she run and she grab it back. So, Karen, you is the senior counsel. I'm giving you the SCPI here. In any court, I know communication expert, but a little understanding, there is no argument with it. He influenced it. No. Listen to me again.
Yes. I mean, it's common sense. It's common sense, and he's just being a bully.
Did an interim investigation about Paria. What the fool is happening with the police service? All of a sudden, there's interim investigation. You're changing the whole protocol. Something has to be mad in this country now. They're keeping us a fool. The other thing I am asking loud, the Stanley John report wasn't to influence. You use a high official with stature to allegedly, because I don't know what the report and if they vet it, to throw mud. And why I'm saying that, I'm going back to the Sat Sharma issue. And listen to this. People are thinking
Quick,
Sat Sharma issue, you had a high-profile Chief Justice was the main witness. He was there as a stature witness to say, look, something wrong. When it go to the Privy Council and it came back and he went into the box, no virtual hearing, he had an in-person, it collapsed. Was that the modus operandi to pelt mud? And I'm going back to the Integrity Commission. You had a fella who was a judge, a Sebastian, who come out and say there's things that you use a person of stature to pelt mud. It have a lot of things I could say, but I will leave it for tomorrow.
Thank you, caller. Thank you.
Morning.
I just want to say one thing with regard to the Stanley John report. It was a report that was never intended or should not have been made public if the Police Service Commission had done its job properly. Because part of its duty in preparing the order of merit list was to vet each candidate. And if the vetting of the candidate, which they apparently ignored the FUL, that is why it became a public matter. So they have themselves to blame for that.
We have a caller on the line from Tobago. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Karen. Thank you for taking my call. I'm really enjoying the conversation this morning. Some great points brought forward. I just want to make a few comments.
Sure.
One is when Karen mentioned the SORT group that was formed by Mr. Griffith. I just want to point out, I saw that happening, and that is such a dangerous situation, given the histories that we know of in places like Haiti and Grenada and other places. I don't think any paramilitary organization should ever be under the control of any one person. There has to be some serious checks and balances in place to make ensure that that is not misused and abused. The second thing is concerning the list, probably call it list gate. He has his own Watergate going on here. There appears to be enough circumstantial evidence, if I may use that word, Karen. There appears to be enough circumstantial evidence to suggest that a serious inquiry and investigation needs to be done into that situation.
Yeah.
And consequences need to follow. And lastly, it is, as someone said, I think his name is Marty or something like that. He says a tyrant's power does not come from themselves per se, but actually from the people. It's the people that enable their own tyrants and dictators and so forth by their own subservience and weaknesses, where they look to these people to save them, as opposed to opening their eyes and being very aware of what's going on around them. That's my comment this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very, very strong comment.
Yes, and that's what we try to do on WSM.
Yes, and I'd just like to say that point that he made, yes, when SORT was directly under Commissioner Griffiths, I think as small and minor as that might be, that alone is also another red flag. Because as the caller rightfully pointed out, should never have direct authority over such an important and powerful paramilitary organization. We have a caller from Diego Martin, another caller from Diego Martin, I believe. Good morning.
Oh, hi everyone. Good morning.
Morning.
Karen and Keaton, I hope you're feeling better. Thanks. So we're back here again, but we were talking about all these famous quotes. Bastille Pandey didn't only say politics has a morality of its own, he also spoke of lies and innuendo. So this Prime Minister is so used to lies, deceit, and the 99th hour action that, look, it's led him to his own mea culpa, to volunteer that it was him, when he could have simply sent a confidential correspondence in a timely manner long ago, instead of inserting himself at that specific time. So even if, let's say, he had now realized at that moment, on whatever day, we still don't know the day, he could have phoned even, but it's the clandestine cloak and dagger kind of thing, that works for his base and the apologists. But I also just want to give an example that Martin George gave a long time ago when this had now started. He said there was a similar situation in Jamaica about the Superintendent Hewitt. And the Privy Council ruled at that time that the PSC should have done its own investigation, right? There was also the case of Nizam Mohammed, who was the then, another time, head of the PSC, and he had a problem with President Max Richards, and they were saying that the president there can be no inquiry into the president. But the same Judith Jones at that time said that is only if due process is followed. However, in this case, where it appears as though it wasn't, the president can be investigated. So now Keith Rowley just wants us to go down another rabbit hole for yet another national distraction. We don't know if it's from Paria, the baby, which of the many crises, the 10-to-1 that is murder. I mean, how many things are we going to get up and go through every single day? Thank you. Bye.
Can I just say something very quickly before you respond, Sean?
Yeah.
I think the point about it is that the Police Service Commission, in spite of all the information that was out there on the FQL for about 2 years, appeared to be paying no mind to it. So I think the Prime Minister felt that if he had sent a report to them, that it would have been ignored or they would not have taken it on based on the fact that they never even looked into it. So he felt that the only way to force the hand of the Police Service Commission was what he did. It was only right way to do it. He did interfere and he had his reasons, which I don't think are exactly above board.
Well, and that's the thing. The caller
but you made some very good points. Maybe you should join Sean.
the caller made a good point with regards to why did he wait until that moment, the 11th of 11th hours on the matter. And then not only was there seemingly an attempt at cloak and dagger, but it was a failed attempt at cloak and dagger because the cat was let out of the bag from almost the very beginning. But I will say, oh gosh. Anyway, I will, let me just pull up something here. Oh, anyway, we have a caller from Chaguanas. Good morning, caller.
Hello?
Yes, yes. Don't listen to the TV. Listen to the phone. You're live on here.
My TV off. It's mute.
I'm hearing an echo. That's why we keep saying that. We keep saying that. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, lady and gentlemen. No, my TV is on mute. I don't know.
That's the echo. That's the echo. Just go ahead. Just go ahead, caller. Just go ahead,
remember,
Professor.
I made a scenario regards the. Well, I don't want my TV on mute. I hear you on my phone.
Just ignore it. Just go ahead.
Right. I described a scenario that could have happened at the President's house with the Prime Minister yesterday. And at the time, I believe you agreed with me that it sounded reasonable. No, but I did not hear Mr. Teixeira address it. And that was that the Prime Minister could have gone to see the President on his normal business. On his way there, he saw Ms. Supersad, no plan agreement. And he just asked her, hey, what's going on here? And she said, well, I just put up the list. And then he asked her, well, what about my complaint I made against the Prime Minister? And then she said, oh, I forgot about that. And then she went and withdrew the meritus. And I am saying, from my experience in the public service, that is permissible, provided you documented every document documented and have it there in writing. And I would like to hear her response on that.
Okay, thank you, caller. We'll have to cut you
anything
there
is
because
possible. So we don't have much time because I know you want to hear your callers.
It's
but
just
anything
because of
is
the
possible,
echo. It's
but
hard
it's
to
highly
go back and forth
unlikely
with
that
him.
that is what happened. And in any event, it'd be very curious as he just happened to have the report with him while he happened to be going to see the president, whilst Chris Prasad happened to be going to submit a list. Too many happenings. You know, that's what they call circumstantial, and that's heavy circumstantial evidence. And I think it's more likely that the other scenario played out, particularly since the Prime Minister has said what he has said, as the President has said what she has said.
I think the key with what the professor said just now was that you have to document it. And the Prime Minister said nothing about it, did not admit to anything. There was no documentation, I believe, about it. It was discovered. To be fair, I don't know how it was discovered. So such claims should be questioned, but now it has been confirmed by the man himself. So, I mean, it's interesting, but at this point, yes, Karen, I think it's difficult to think it could be that scenario now after all that we know, because it seems as though he went there to meet with Bliss, not to meet with the president. We have another caller from Santa Cruz. Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Sean and Karen. Karen, this question is yours. Just shifting aside a little bit. Do the name Sarah Palin mean anything to you?
Sarah Palin, the one who said that you could see Alaska from her back door.
You could see Russia from Alaska.
See Russia from behind her back door in Alaska. Is that who you're talking about?
That should be.
And who lost a case with the New York Times for defamation? Is that what you're speaking about? Because that's only Sarah Palin I know of.
Okay. This one was the governor for one time in the U.S. She was the candidate, I think, in the Bush. In the Bush, George Bush.
She was a running mate for McCain. She was a running mate for McCain, and they lost. And a lot of the reason people said they lost was because of her. It was a bad choice. And she has proven that to be true.
Is there anything else to ask?
What is the point, though?
Hello?
Hello, yes.
Yes, anything further to ask? Yes, you're live. Do you have anything else to ask? Anything else to say?
Oh, no. I had the pleasure some years ago of meeting Sarah Palin, you know, and you always remind me about her. Look like your sister.
Oh, dear.
Oh, boy.
I'm not too sure if I... But she's not a bad-looking woman, but that's about as far as I want to say.
well, thank you, caller. We'll have to cut it there. 623-9376, 622-9338. Call in. We have just about 5 minutes. We could take one, maybe two calls if we get them soon enough. One of the things that I wanted to say after our last caller from Diego Martin, she brought up the point, and I was kind of struggling a little bit live on air, unfortunately, because there were too many things. Was the fact that she brought up, is this just a distraction? Conveniently bringing back this topic to distract us from what's currently going on or what is very new, and that is the situation in Paria. It's not the first time I've heard that with regards to this specifically, but we have a caller from St. James. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning to you both. You remember some time ago when Mr. Gordon was in charge of what commission it was, that the goodly Dr. Pete Rowley went to see him on some matter. I don't know if that is his modus operandi or, interweaving somehow to get his stuff done. Don't know. I don't know if you only call that incident.
I know that Integrity Commission because I was investigated and Ken Gordon was appointed president, and I could tell you that Integrity Commission has no integrity. I would say if people do not have confidence in our public institutions, they are quite right. I'm not. By the way, let me be very clear. I am not talking about Ken Gordon because he came in at the tail end. So all the mischief that went on, and they had to come out and make a public written apology to me. Forced their hand because I was going for judicial review. I can tell you from my experience with that Integrity Commission, they have no integrity. They misuse it for witch hunting. So I think Dr. Rowley had a similar experience when they sent a file to the DPP regarding a report without letting him see it first and giving him the opportunity. And I think the Justice Raj Notli found in favor of it. So that Integrity Commission, as so many of the national institutions, the people that had it, I can tell you from my own personal experience, people are right to not to be comforted by them.
Caller, there might be parallels with the situation, but as you've heard, it's not exactly the same. More importantly, as Prime Minister, the paradigm shifts even further into what you can or cannot do with regards to how you interact with independent bodies. So, I would not, I actually won't say that this is a pattern of behavior. I think this is not, thank you, caller. I think this was not necessarily linked per se. It's not a strategy that he uses. I just think it's a case of our politicians in general don't always adhere strictly to the rules. And
he might have a good point too, though, Sean.
Well, fair enough.
He may have a good point.
Fair enough. But I do think this is different. I mean, and maybe you're right. And this is because he thinks he did it before he could do it again and doesn't realize, well, not only are the circumstances different.
And may have done it several times, but we don't know.
That is true. But how many times did he do it as Prime Minister? Because those times would be even, I should say, the stakes or the breaches would be even worse because you have he is the executive. He is one of the two people you can't remove.
What? And being Prime Minister, you get a lot of protection.
Well.
And I want to say just one thing. Okay, I do watch Dr. Phil. And to my daughter's dismay that I should watch it. But he does say one thing I think we can apply here. The best predictor of future behavior is past relevant behavior. So if you keep that in mind, you will understand that past relevant behavior gives you a good indication of what to expect in the future. And that goes for Mr. Griffith, by the way.
We have our last caller from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Right. right, good morning again, Mr. Small and Karen. The last caller, what I think he was alluding to, Ken Gordon documented the visit of Keith Rowley
Yes.
at the midnight
Yes.
visit. What he was
Yes.
trying to say, did Bliss did the same thing? Did she go back to her office and document in the Police Service Commission, I met Keith Rowley, I met this, man, do this, he tell me this, he tell me don't
Very
do this,
good.
and I make a decision. That is all I getting from that caller.
Thank you.
And you're brilliant caller, brilliant.
Yes,
I think that was
yes,
a very good
I agree.
analysis.
Thank you, caller. I agree. That was an important point because, and I think that's
Very much so.
That's one of the things that you could argue, one of the mechanisms to allow the Prime Minister, who is not supposed to interfere by law with the workings of the Service Commission, to interact with the Service Commission. Transparency covers
Absolutely.
you. But this was a situation, as we said before, where he was doing the opposite of transparency. With regards to what you said there, Karen, just before the caller, past behavior indicates future behavior. I think this is what I find funny. We don't expect criminals to be rehabilitated, but there are politicians who would have serious accusations, not necessarily proven, hanging over their heads. And all they need to do is have one good public moment and they're rehabilitated in our eyes and we accept them with open arms and they can't be all bad. Look at how sincere they are on the camera. If one of those murderers in the jail was sincere on camera, would we be so willing to forgive them? I'm not entirely sure.
Well, it's two things. Time as a way of, which is what I think Dr. Rowley knows very well. Keep quiet, keep under the radar, say nothing, people will forget it. And secondly, the choice, what are the choices? Many people would like to serve, but when they see how your life is destroyed, the families themselves tell their husbands or their wives, if you're doing that, you're looking for a divorce. The children don't want it. You pay a very high price to go into political life. So it's not a straightforward thing at all.
One of our other contributors has said that not only for him, but I believe he also knows of others, young people who've been in the youth parliament, who are bright, intelligent. These are the kinds of people that you would want to at least see give it a go, right? And at that age, they don't have the same sort of corruption and baggage that the older politicians do. But they look at the situation and they don't want to be involved. They don't want to get involved into that.
Yeah, but I can tell you, Sean, they're very vulnerable. People attack people in politics because politicians have the power. They have the power to give a contract, the power to do this. So suddenly you, Mr. Nobody, who had a little clerk job, now you are in a position of power to give a contract or not to give a contract. And some people, become seduced by it. So it's not an easy thing. And I can tell you one last thing on that, which I found out, and it was really shocking to me why people may not want to go into politics. Unless you're independently wealthy, unless you have a position that you can afford after your you lose an election. I have seen many of my colleagues in situations where some of them literally had to leave Trinidad, literally had to give back their cars, literally had no jobs. And for myself, I didn't even try to get a job in Trinidad because I felt I was blacklisted. And you pay and that's just talking about the ministers, much less for the other persons who have this contract. So politics is not a game. It is not something for the faint-hearted, and you pay a very, very heavy price in politics.
Well, that is more or less all the time we have there. I'll just give my final point. I was willing to give Kamala Persad-Bissessar and Keith Rowley the benefit of the doubt because coming in before their careers did not suggest they would be great politicians when they became Prime Minister. And then when they became Prime Minister, unfortunately, I was disappointed. So I think your theory has some credence. But unfortunately, we can't explore that any further, folks. We still have COVID-19, so don't be too complacent. People, unfortunately, are still dying. There is a war going on in Ukraine, so obviously you need to consider all of the implications we have affecting us with regards to inflation, cost of food, cost of fuel. Be responsible in your lives. Be responsible for yourselves. Don't complain about the government and expect the government to be responsible for you. I want to thank all of our callers. Once again, Karen, thanks for joining me today on Talking Point. This is WESN's Talking Point on your content capital. We'll see you again tomorrow. Goodbye.